The Rizzard of Oz.
Hey, I'm Tyler.
And I'm Lily. Welcome to the Rizzard of Oz Season 1, Episode 2. And we're going to be talking about Bleeding Kansas, doing like a Q&A type thing. So Ty's going to talk about John Brown first. Who was John Brown?
Well, John Brown was an abolitionist in the 1700s, late 1700s. And he was famous for being an extreme abolitionist. Some abolitionists didn't even like him because he thought that, obviously, that slavery needed to end and be abolished immediately. But the only way he thought that was possible is if he killed everyone who had an opposing viewpoint.
So why was John Brown important, and what important conflicts was he involved in?
He was important because he sort of stirred up the nation into the conflict, pro-slavery, anti-slavery conflict. I mean, it was going on for a long time before that, but he was the one who kind of started to get people riled up and kind of anxious to end it either way. And one of the more important conflicts that he was involved in was the sacking of Lawrence. And after the sacking of Lawrence, he was enraged by the amount of people that died who were anti-slavery, and he kind of went on a murdering spree after that, and tried to get as many people as possible to join him.
Was he a hero or a terrorist?
He was a hero with his ideas, but he was kind of a terrorist. You shouldn't be killing people because they disagree with you. He was killing people who did awful things, but his killing didn't really help. It sort of started the war.
Well, I mean, that war would eventually lead to slavery being legal, but...
Yeah, he shouldn't
He
have
was
done
on
it
the
like
right
that.
track, but he wasn't quite there yet with his
Yeah.
execution. Okay, now we're going to move on to the battles and conflicts. Like, more of the battles and conflicts that happened during Bleeding Kansas. Ty's going to ask me questions.
Okay, Lilia, so tell me about the Wakarusa War.
The Wakarusa War was started after a pro-slavery settler killed a free stater in a dispute over land while they were in a free state. This dispute wasn't even about slavery at all, but it ignited a spark that would spread throughout Kansas, and that would become the Wakarusa War. After this happened, people were angry about this person who was killed, and after that started just more conflicts, and then newspapers were exaggerating what happened, and they were highly critical of pro-slavery leaders. The newspapers were problematic for pro-slavery people, and so that's when what Tyler was talking about, the sack of Lawrence, happened, where 800 armed men burned down Lawrence's 2 newspaper offices, a Free State Hotel, and the home of Charles Robinson. He was the person who would eventually become the first state governor. And then after this, more violence erupted over the Kansas situation, and it even spread all the way down to Washington, D.C. An anti-slavery senator, Charles Sumner, gave a passionate speech about the crime against Kansas, and after that he was beat really bad, which that caused even more discourse between the people who were supposed to be running the nation. This is when the Civil War was rapidly approaching. So yeah.
What was another important event that happened?
Well, talking about John Brown, there was, in 1856, John Brown, along with his sons and 3 other men, murdered 5 well-known pro-slavery men. This was known as the Potawatomi Massacre. I think I'm pronouncing that right. I don't really know. After this, the Deputy U.S. Marshal wanted revenge, and then John Brown was being hunted down, and his sons were captured and attacked. Almost 100 men fought for 3 hours. This was known as the Battle of Blackjack. Lots of other skirmishes took place, lots of raids, massacres, and battles.
Hi, I'm Tyler, and I'm going to be talking about another haunted building in Kansas, the Sallie House. The Sallie House was a normal house for years, built in the 1860s. It's located in Atchison, Kansas, and is one of the most famous haunted houses in Kansas. The house is now about 157 years old, and it was home to a physician. The house is called the Sallie House because one day, a little girl named Sallie was brought in with severe appendicitis. The physician, knowing there was no time left, started doing the surgery before the anesthesia took full effect. Sadly, Sally died screaming, thinking that the physician was torturing her. The first reports of hauntings started in 1993 when a young couple with their dog and baby rented the house. Their dog would growl at things that weren't there and was afraid of the nursery. Fire broke out and objects would move when the man came near. The man could feel something touching his abdomen, but the wife and kids never felt anything. And some of the other haunted things that happened were video and investigative equipment that stopped working, batteries that were full immediately stopped working and were drained, objects moved by themselves, unexplained scratches or bruising on bodies of people after visits, people feeling something physically touching them but nothing being there, weird cold spots, and trained guide dogs refusing to enter the nursery. Nowadays, the house has been on many paranormal shows and television networks. The official website of the house claims to have photographic and audio proof of paranormal activity. You can take daytime tours and overnight visits, and many people still claim to encounter paranormal activity today. Is it really haunted, or are people just seeing things that aren't there, feeling things that didn't happen?
Hi, I'm Lily, and for my segment, I'm going to be talking about the Dalton Gang. How could people who used to work in favor of the law get pushed into a life crime that resulted in serious injury and their own deaths? Before the Dalton brothers, which are Bob, Emmett, and Grattan Dalton, were well known, they were very notable guys because they had been the people who would track down thieves, cattle hustlers, and train robbers, etc. But not long after working for the law, their paychecks had become sporadic and insufficient for them. So eventually their temptations got the best of them, and Bob and Grat began robbing horses, selling illegal whiskey, and stealing whatever random items they felt they needed. So obviously they got fired from their jobs as law enforcement, and by the beginning of the 1890s, the Dalton Gang had formed when 3 other guys, Dick Bradwell, Bill Doolin, and Bill Power, had joined them in their petty crimes. Further down the line, horse thieving and those other crimes didn't satisfy them anymore, and they were burning through money as fast as they were stealing it. So they cranked it up a notch by adding train robberies to their list of crimes. Still, they weren't very well-known criminals and only made a few headlines, but it was after accidentally killing a person with a stray bullet in one of their train robberies when people finally knew who the Dalton Gang was. After that, they were considered one of the region's most wanted outlaws. The gang disappeared into Colorado and California for a while they probably continued on their crimes. But then on October 5th, 1892, the Dalton gang attempted a double robbery in broad daylight in Coffeyville, Kansas. I don't know why they thought it was a good idea to rob banks in the middle of the day, but they're probably drunk. I don't know. Anyway, this event was the event that got them all killed, well, nearly all of them killed, by the quick-acting townspeople. 2 of the Dalton brothers, Bob and Emmett, headed for the First National Bank, while Grat Dalton led Dick Bradwell and Bill Powers to the Condon Bank. I think that's how you say it, Condon. Unfortunately for the Daltons, someone recognized one of the gang members and began quietly spreading the word that the town banks were being robbed. So the townspeople grabbed their guns and surrounded the banks waiting for them. When they came out, they were met with flying bullets, and some gang members tried grabbing loose cash and escaping, but at the end of this great shootout, every member of the Dalton Gang was dead besides Emmett, who was wounded. Emmett was sentenced to life in prison, but was pardoned after serving 14 years. There was also an alleged treasure that the Dalton Gang hid with the money they had collected over the robberies. Although the supposed treasure has never been revealed, there are many places associated with the Dalton Gang where people think the treasure might be hiding. There is actually a place where you can visit, like, the Dalton Gang's actual hideout. I went there a while ago. I don't remember much about it, but you can get a tour of the underground tunnel that connected the barn from their family house, and it will tell you the history, and you can look at pictures from that time period. So if you want to visit, this attraction is in Meade County, Kansas.
Hi, this is Alessandra, and today we are talking about our recent visit to the Pretty Posy. also located in downtown OP. I went with my mom and my sister, and my mom is here with me today. So, Mom, what did you think about the Pretty Posy?
Well, I really liked it. I thought it had a really nice, clean, streamlined feel. Very organized.
Yeah, I agree. Rather than earth tones, this store had a crisp white and gray walls and floors.
Yeah, in fact, the books kind of made up for the punches of color throughout the store, which, kind of kept you focused on the books because they stood out.
Yeah, I agree. When you first walk in, on your left you see a cash register. There are white shelves with colorful books lining the walls and a table with some books as well as other non-book products such as embroidery sets, stickers, and candles. And on the right you see romance novels, many of which were written by local authors. Mm-hmm. My favorite part of the Pretty Posy is probably the little kid space because I think that they hit the spot on what a little kid's space should look like and would be perfect if I was 4 to 7.
Yeah, and do you remember that there was little individual reading nooks that patrons could just come in and use?
I do. The kids section is a perfect environment for little kids. The space includes stuffed toys, a reading station, and a little drawing desk.
Yeah, so overall, compared to Monstero's book, which we visited on the same day, and they're within walking distance of each other, which one would you suggest for our listeners to visit if they were in Overland Park?
Well, if you are in Overland Park, I say go to both and decide for yourself. I would say if you have kids, go to the Pretty Posy, but if you're a little bit older, I would say Monstero's because it has a vibey feel I prefer.
Yeah. So anyway, thanks, Alessandro.
The Rizzard of Oz.